Welcome to Lead Live, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Greetings. We're into another year. This year, I'm calling it the year of freedom and fun. And why freedom? Because we're all about those 5 F's and illuminating the power of our faith, our families, our finances, our fitness, and the importance of embedding fun throughout it. Wow. And I was just sharing with our guest today that I'm going to learn a lot this year as it relates to FUN. I don't know what I don't know, but I am so open and all in. And hopefully you're able to join us as we move forward and in a remarkable way this year, 2022. We're so pleased that you're with us. Welcome to Lead Live. Today, we have part 2 of 3 ways to use communications to drive change. Why part 2? Actually, there should be multiple parts. And Dan doesn't know it, but I'm going to ask him to come back. And I'm going to ask him to come back to do a part 3 and maybe more based upon your feedback. But let's tell you that communications is so remarkably critical. And why? We're going to answer that in part. I want to tell you initially that the very foundation of strategic communications is changing in the current media landscape. Who says that? Our guest. Individuals can choose to find their news where they want to. In this fractured environment, the key to effective communications come in defining target audiences as narrowly as possible and surrounding them with focused messaging. Powerful. Says a gentleman who can take 30 words and reduce it down to 3 or 4, and you're like, how is that possible? And has actually a more exacting messaging provided. Dan Cohen is the principal and founder of Full Court Press, we call FCP. He's a veteran public relations strategist. His work at General Mills and in the mid-1990s was recognized by the Wall Street Journal as being on the forefront of leveraging brands to create better PR success. It's interesting. Intentionally, I wanted to share with you one of so many awards that his organization has gotten, that he has gotten as the founder and principal of this organization. He's among the top elite public relations agencies. This gentleman also is known for his philanthropic work. His organization cares more than just the bottom line of ensuring that they expand their base of clients. They care about how they're able to give more because they've expanded their base of clients. But there's more to this gentleman. And intentionally, I illuminate him because of his humble spirit. He's not likely to illuminate himself. He does that a very good job with others. Dan currently guides Full Court Press clients as they seek solutions on issues ranging from universal children's health insurance coverage to immigration. And there's so much in between. That organization, Full Court Press Communications, has evolved as its audiences have. That's a true testament of a leader, someone who's actively engaged in learning from his clients, learning from the greater body politic, the greater community across the globe, so that they can better, as an organization, meet the needs of individuals they've yet to even work with. So what does this mean for their clients? It means that they're focused on their energies by providing appropriate strategies, regardless of tactical elements required. And then they are unrelenting, they're relentless in executing those particular strategies. Now, he does a lot of things, and I had the honor of meeting him prior to serving on the Oakland Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce Board And as a longstanding executive board member, he also leads in many other spaces, but I won't go through all of that. I want to ask him to come to the forefront with the help of Jet, my remarkable technologist, if you will, more than technician behind the scenes. And Dan, it's wonderful to see you now that I've embarrassed you completely.
Thank you.
Thanks for
It's
being
really
here
it's
again.
amazing to see you. And we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, and a big part of how we've gotten to know
Wow.
the community is by doing a lot of trainings and seminars and speeches. And what I'll say is, in 20 years of being introduced, I've never like teared up. And you
Mm,
were so sweet to
mm,
say such nice things, not just about me, but about our organization. We have built, I think, a really great team at FCP, and we've been able to deliver a lot of value to our clients, and it just shows and
mm,
it pays off. So
mm.
thank you for those amazing, amazing sweet words. I really
It
appreciate it.
it is so easy and so much my honor. I think I shared during the first session that we had on broadcast where I got to meet you in a way that actually transformed my understanding of communications, strategic communications in particular. So I use the example of you taking 30 words and reducing it down to 3 or few words and having a more exacting, powerful impact. And you did that with words I was using. I'm known to use a lot of flowery words and a lot of statements, and you're like, so is this what you really mean? Is this not? You didn't say really. Is this what you mean, Dr. Webb? You're very respectful. And I looked at you, and I looked at the colleague that was with you, and I was blown away. If I was standing, I would have dropped to my seat. It was just that palpable, and your facility and just listening to understand. And that is a testament of a true leader, someone who's not about just saying, talking, but slowing down to listen to understand first. And maybe it's about you being understood. It's less, though, for you in terms of you and your team being understood. That is, unless the organization needs to know more about you, it's more about you understanding that organization to provide them with substantive feedback. So, our previous conversation, what did we do? We talked about why communication is important. We talked about what are the 3 ways to use communications to drive change. We talked about what is an example of a distressing event that required special communications to enable the change that was necessary. And we also talked about, is there enough communication in business today?
Hmm.
Now, uh, beyond just why communication is important to leadership, what I'd like to do today is go a little bit further and literally take it from that broad questioning
Sure.
to do what you and I talked about. Let's
Hmm.
make it more specific. So
Sure.
there's 3 things that we're going to talk about today, thanks to you: leadership, communications, and mistakes, including leadership mindfulness. So let's start. Can you remind us what those 3 ways to communication are to drive change first?
Absolutely. So first of all, I love this conversation. Right, it's so rare during all of our lives that we get to hit the pause button and spend an hour learning with each other, putting the time in to learn, whether it's reading or learning from mentors like you. It's so critical to our development because it's easy for all of us in our daily job to get um, stilted a little bit, right?
Mm,
Or to be
yeah.
afraid of all the change that's out there. And one of the most amazing things that happened to me was 15 years ago. I was at an industry conference, and there was a gentleman who was speaking. His name was Clay Shirky, and he's a professor at NYU and a noted media expert. And he looked out at the audience. It was filled with strategic communicators, and he said, "Look, it's okay. We're in the middle of a communications revolution. No
Mm,
one's going to have all the answers. And you have to be open to learn, and you have to be open to
mm,
change." And so one of the best things to start thinking about communicating change is understanding that we're in a time of communications revolution, and a change in the power dynamics involved in communications. So as a leader, and we think about leadership, communications, and mistakes, as we think about a leader approaching this with a sense of humility, you know, the American model of leadership often leaves out the notion of humility. right? The idea that I'm a servant leader or I'm a listening leader. So being open to that kind of leadership that involves humility um, is one way to then listen so that you can have the impact that you're hoping to have. And I think the second, when it comes to communications, is really reminding yourself why you're there communicating in the first place. You're not just there to make noise. You're there to have an impact, whether it's on a customer or your colleagues or on the body politic, as you called it, and keeping them first and foremost, which again involves a sense of humility. And then the last is, recognizing that mistakes are fine. We live in a culture that punishes mistakes, and I think it's wrong. I think mistakes are they're the only way to learn in a lot of ways. And so being humble, being open to communications, mistakes will actually make us better communicators. I'll stop there, but there's obviously plenty to talk about.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that you remind us that this is an important time of renewal. And we get to build our communication resolutions list, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
so
true.
I love, and so there's the first question I want us to entertain, and that is how to think about making a list of goals for communications. I don't know that very many people, unless they're in the communications industry, if you will,
Mhm.
do just that. But can you go describe what that might look like?
Absolutely. What a great question. And I think it prompts, it's January, it's time for resolutions. And I think for a lot of business folks, they use that week between Christmas and New Year, not just to recharge from the year or relax from the year, but to recharge and prepare for the year ahead. And for many of the folks watching, you may have set organizational goals or business goals for the year. And what I would remind you is it's also a great opportunity to hit Control Alt Delete and reset and set some new communications goals. Um,
Mm,
that may match your business goals. So whether they be sales targets or whether they be hiring targets or whether they be business growth targets, all of them are going to benefit from thinking about who you're trying to reach and what you want them to do. And that's all setting communications goals really is. It's identifying a target audience and identifying what they need to hear in order for them to do what you like them to do. So I would encourage folks, now's the moment to really think about your business goals, think about your audience that you're trying to engage, and then think about what would get them to do what you want them to do. And it all goes back to that sense of humility. So many business leaders, so many community leaders are more than happy to tell you what they think, but very few are willing to open their ears and say, no, what do you need? And
mm,
what can I help you get in order to then accomplish what we both want to accomplish?
mm. I love the simplicity of Control Alt Delete Reset. I
Yeah,
love that. I love that. The simplifying. It's not a big deal, folks. So make it a massive undertaking, unless it is a big deal and you need to make it a massive undertaking.
sure.
Just systematically. I won't even need to paraphrase you. You said it so eloquently. Next
You know, we
question is, oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, look, we've written communications plans for our clients that are hundreds of pages long, that looked at communications data, that looked at the structure of an argument, but we've also basically written them on the back of a napkin. A communications plan just needs to point you in the right direction. And then you can set SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, time bound. You could set those SMART goals, but just being pointed in a direction can make a huge difference, and making the choice to be pointed in that direction.
I like I love the next question that
Yeah.
we have. Can you rebrand yourself as a communicator? Is past prologue or can you evolve?
I've been thinking about that so much recently, as we see so many business leaders and communications leaders really wrestle with what it means to be communicating in these revolutionary times, whether it's missteps or certainly the pandemic has changed a lot of the power dynamic between CEOs or business leaders and their colleagues that they engage to work with them. And I think that it's a great moment to reassess, like, how am I presenting myself as a communicator? What tools am I using as a communicator? And how am I honoring those that are working with me or that are on this same journey. So whether your organization may do 360s or you may be getting feedback, I would say this is the time of year to really dig into that, because the great reset, or this great moment that we're in where people are working remotely or frankly wherever they want, as a business leader or a community leader, it's ever more important to use this moment to say, okay, what have I been doing as a communicator? What's been successful? What hasn't been successful? What do my employees or partners need now? And how can I deliver it to them in maybe new ways? So, there are leaders who perhaps have been very top down. This could be a moment to say, okay, all bets are off. In a lot of ways, people have been talking about an opt-in workforce. Everybody needs a job, but there's a lot of jobs out there in this sort of economic recovery we're in, and they all look different than they used to look. So is it also a moment to say, okay, maybe I need to think about how am I engaging my colleagues or my employees? Could I do it differently? Could I do it better? Recognizing that maybe some of the dynamics and the power dynamics have changed.
It's interesting because as you were talking, what keeps coming up in my head is COVID, 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 and the many missteps that happened last year, whether we're talking at the federal level in politics, or we're talking at the local level in our families or in our workplaces or in our neighborhoods. People are like, you must do this, you must do this, you must do this. And it's changing as we learn more about the actual virus. You don't need to do this. You must do this. And that's all communication. And
Absolutely.
and I think about folks I know who are in leadership roles who've chosen to leave those leadership roles because of the nature of the communication that was so harsh and dismissive and autocratic, and didn't allow for the flexibility that now we know, because we have more information, should have been allowed for, right? Because we tend to go for the jugular right away. Not all of us, but too often in society we do that. And
Yeah.
for maybe good reasons, or out of fear, or we just have been told to do so. So, how does one who's been so and arguably even dictatorial in demanding that people do X, only
Yeah.
to find out, well, if people all do X, there are negative consequences to
Yeah.
them and their families. So how do we shift even that messages? Can that be rebranded?
So fear-based communications will work once, right? Once you get past that first time, you lose credibility each time you try to go to the fear message. So one of my communications gurus, Anna Marie Jones, has really pioneered a lot of fear-free communications when it comes to disaster
Mm,
response. Disaster response,
mm,
and we've learned from her, and we've brought that into a lot of the communications we're trying to do around um, COVID education and COVID empowerment. And I use those
mm,
words on purpose, right? We will not win if we try to scare people. I'm sorry, you win once. You'll get your message across once. The second, third, fourth time, people will tune you out, and it's just as true with my kids as it is with the greater public or the consumers you might be trying to engage. So to really change behavior, it starts with you as a leader. It starts with you using fear-free communications, where
mm,
you use things like appealing to people's values, shared values even, or you appeal to people's intellect and give them access to the information that they need to make a wise or personally beneficial choice.
mm,
I will say we are living in a time where more and more minds are being closed, and it's very difficult to pry minds open once somebody has closed their mind.
mm,
And I think that there's a lot of work left to do on how to engage people once the bear trap, if you will, has been shut. And we are not experts in that. Again, this is a revolution. But once somebody is surrounded by information that closes their mind, figuring out ways to open it is very difficult. But the one thing I can tell you is that um, that will never happen through conflict, and it will never happen um,
mhm,
through arguments. It will only happen through open, honest engagement, and the health just speaking of COVID, the health world is full of anecdotes of people who've changed their mind and become open to a different solution just by honest inquiry and by open and non-judgmental inquiry. We'll talk about mindfulness later, but I think that there's a lot to learn if you bring mindfulness into this discussion as well.
Powerful. And I like that the phrasing of is past prologue or can you evolve?
Yeah.
Because what it does is it shakes us out of, oh, that's our history. So we've got to bring that along. It is critical, and we've got to just continue to do what we've always done. But do we? Must we? Yes.
Well, we also change as individuals. Like, I'm a much different organizational leader than I was 20 years ago when we started the business. I know you as a leader have evolved and you're a
Absolutely.
very thoughtful leader. And the first time I came across you as a leader of a 14,000 person institution, you evolved even during the time of sitting in that important role. So I think the wise leaders are willing to look at themselves, reflect on themselves with humility, take honest feedback, and then ideally not just change the way they communicate, but model it such that it becomes the culture of the organization.
Yeah, powerful. What does success look like to you in 2022? I think this is a fun
Yeah.
question, communications wise. And
Yeah,
I
I
want us
think,
to break down communication and wise, emphasis on wisdom.
look, I think for all of us, and I don't want to speak for myself. I think really as we think about resolutions for the year ahead and how to be successful, I think that communication success really comes down to a couple things. One is, are you helping your organization grow? And you can define grow however you want, right? Are you growing internally with your capacity? Are you growing externally in your engagement with your constituencies or your customer? I think the second is, are you using communications to deliver value, but then to also remind people that you delivered value, right? So you're not only saying to them, look at this great thing we've done, or look at this great product we have, or thank you for being a part of our product community. You're reminding them that as part of that, you're delivering value over and over and over again. And the platform that you use, StreamYard, to make these videos, it's an incredible platform and they deliver great value. But one of the things they also do is remind you, hey, we're delivering great value to you, right? Haven't you enjoyed this product? And then I think the third thing is,
I want to
yeah,
add to that because I know it's
please.
embedded in your mindset and your behavior, your practices, and that is communicating the value of those clients, the value of that community that you've been serving,
Yeah,
communicating the value of the folks with whom you're working, who report to you, who are employees in the organization, who are leading the organization from where they sit. That's
absolutely.
part of the success story, right?
Yeah, sure. I think that that's critical. And I think that even to the point, I don't know if you remember seventh grade, but in seventh grade in my school, we all had to write a term paper. And one of the things in writing a term paper we had to learn how to do was make footnotes. Do you remember footnotes when you first learned about them? You're like, why do I need
I
footnotes?
do. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Turns out that if you honor someone for
Yeah,
their inquiry, or if you honor
yes,
someone for their contribution and you provide them credit, it not only empowers them, but it also empowers you. It builds your generosity as a leader and it builds your credibility as a communicator.
yes,
So, one of the most important things as
absolutely.
a business leader that you can do is say, we had this great initiative. We are going to move forward. And it
Mhm,
was Elnora who said, wouldn't it be great if we started thinking about customers in X or this issue out Y? It just brings great credibility to you as a
mhm.
communicator. And that is another thing I would encourage folks to think about for 2022 is where can you be a generous communicator?
I love that. I love that. Just as an article, as a name, a title of a book, as memes, generous communicator. I love that.
I love it too.
Because embedded is in there is the notion of that wise that's attached to communications
Yeah.
wise. And
Yeah.
that is the interchange, that is the prudent conveying of facts, of realities, of understandings, of even feelings that are big takeaways to the successes that have occurred, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's two. I mean, there's also in thinking about communications and how to build it in. You also have to be candid with yourself about what kind of a communicator am I. Am I a small group communicator? Am I an inspirer? Am I a video communicator? Am I a wordsmith? Am I a pat you on the back kind of person? And then really evaluate, okay, are those the tools that are going to get this organization where I want it to go? So for example, I love backslapping. Like, not actually, but I love walking around the office and talking to people and like, what's going on? Well, it turns out nobody's been in our office in 2 years, right? So as a communicator, how do you recreate those kinds of interactions, or frankly, can you? And so I think as we think about 2022 and the goals people are setting, I think being honest with yourself about what kind of a communicator am I, what kind of a communicator does my organization need for the year ahead, and then can I be that kind of person? So that's, when we talk about rebranding, that's really what we meant.
Embedded in there is the reflection, the learning, the growing. Yeah. Our next question: what mentors or models will you engage this year? Is what we ask you folks. Dan and I are asking you, what mentors or models will you engage this year? So let me ask you, Dan, what are you going to do? And I'll share what I'm going to do.
So I think that in 2022, the most important mentorship that I'm looking for is really understanding this platform, really understanding video. I am a wordsmith. I'm a word person. You said it yourself. I can distill 30 words down to 3. But I really continue and am open to learning about the power of video. And look, we make videos for our clients. We make advertising for our clients to help people understand the opportunities around getting educated around COVID and what possibilities there are for them, and even the power of the image. But the power of the moving image is one that I still think I personally need to learn more about. So in the year ahead, I plan to engage people I know in the field who are experts at making these kinds of videos, or making instructional videos, or making fear-free informational videos. I think that's going to be the mentorship that I'm looking for in the year ahead. And I would pose it back to the audience, right? As you think about your skill set, as you think about your superpowers, we all have them. What don't you have? What's not in your toolbox? And what could you use from which communications tool could you use, or could you get better at this year, and to go out and seek that kind of help?
Yeah, and I want to just remind people that mentors or advisors or guides, they're instructors or teachers or counselors, they're not always the same as a coach. And I want to just stop and just acknowledge that. And we want to be mindful of who we choose to leverage as mentors. And I think I don't need to speak for Dan because he can speak brilliantly for himself. I'm going to speak for both of us. We typically look for people of expertise in areas that we don't have. And yet we want to grow and be successful in the area that they're currently successful. So we're not looking for someone that we may like right away, that someone has referred us to. We're going to do our due diligence to see if that person's already exceeded, been excellent in that particular area. That's the person, or the individuals we want to tap. And we need to ask them, will you be my mentor? You do that after you've done the due diligence. You've studied them. You have a sense of what's important to them, so that they can look at you, because you've already informed through your informational interview, your relationship building, that's long before you actually ask them to be your mentor. They know that you're the real deal, that you're coachable, you're going to follow their lead. And so my mentors that I've chosen, there are 2. And then I've chosen a coach who I'm sure will provide me with mentorship too. They understand what I don't know in the particular area that I am interested in growing. And for me, it's financial services. For me, it's financial leadership. For me, it is literally making a difference in the lives of over 1 million families, literally within 10 years. These folks know how to do it, and one has done it. So it's not about trying to, I think this is a good idea. Read this book. Well, yes, we're going to read the book that actually led to your success. We're going to walk and use the system, save yourself time, energy, and money system, folks. We're going to walk that system in order to ensure that the progress, the trajectory is effective, it's efficient. And so we can say so much more about mentoring. In fact, in a subsequent show, we may just talk about mentoring. Because mentoring is a remarkable thing. And a mentor is someone who sees more talent and ability within you than you see in yourself, and helps bring it out of you. Right, Dan? That's what one of my previous mentors said, Bob Proctor.
Yeah. I think you bring to mind two things. One is we talked before about generosity, and what I would encourage people to do is to be radically generous with what you know,
I love
and to
that.
give it away, give it away, and give it away. Anything you learn, the whole reason you have it in your head is to be able to give it away, and it's true in financial
Love it.
leadership. It's true in communications.
Love it.
Um, and then the second thing is sometimes life hits you on the side of the head with a 2x4. I was thinking back. You talked about my time at General Mills in the mid 1990s, as our communications team was loaned to a thing called America's Promise, which was an organization whose sole purpose was building a network of mentoring and making mentoring more available, especially to young people, just building a culture of mentoring. And it's funny, sometimes they send you a rope and a horse and a helicopter, and you don't realize that you're getting all these clues all along. But I think it took me a really long time to really understand that mentoring first starts with giving it all away. And what happens is, as you do that, when you need help, there is no shortage of mentors and experts and guides to help you along the way, frankly, because you've helped 100 other people along the way. And I think that's that kind of radical generosity is really important in thinking about
I
the
love that.
mentor-mentee relationship.
I love that. Radical leadership, radical generosity,
Yeah,
generous leadership. Yeah, that's when you know things are working,
absolutely.
and they're
Absolutely.
working remarkably. Our next question is so important, complementary to all the others. Yet typically we don't even like to even bring up such a question.
Yeah.
What communications mistakes from 2021 have stayed with you? I'm
So I
not just
think,
asking
yeah,
Dan this, I'm
yeah.
asking all of us this, but Dan's going to answer for himself and then provide some guidance. But what communication mistakes from 2021 have stayed with you?
Yeah, and I think as we think about the folks watching this video, I think this kind of humble self-assessment is really important. And so what I would look to in 2021 was really trying to think about the difficulty we've had in sort of opening that bear trap of closed minds.
Mm,
That's been a very difficult challenge for us on behalf of
mm,
our clients and frankly on behalf of myself and in personal relationships I have.
mm,
I hold political beliefs very dearly, and I have very dear friends who hold the exact opposite political beliefs.
mm,
And so some of what I have had to learn as a communicator and as a human is, okay, this person and I believe diametrically opposed things on the political front, but we share so much other in common, about I'm thinking about your 5 F's, right? The family, the faith, the
faith.
finance, the
Mhm,
fitness, and the fun.
mhm, mhm,
And so honoring the fact that we do have all this common ground, and yet trying to communicate our way through this political bear trap. I think that's been the biggest mistake or the biggest
mm,
challenge communications wise of 2021. And it's
mm,
just as true in our work with clients, is that
mhm,
as minds are closing around certain issues, how do you figure out a way to either find common ground or to start prying open that bear trap so that you can, I don't know, find a path to communicate?
mhm. The power of each one of us is not from my humble perspective, in the similarities, is not so much in what we like that we share, or in the commonness of experiences. The power of us as a species is
Yeah,
in that diversity. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. I'll
yeah.
never forget going with a dear friend. I haven't seen her in years. We were uh, grad students together. She's definitely my senior, remarkable woman. Uh, she invited me along with her husband to stay with them in Iowa. Yeah, Iowa, for a spell. And Helena and Joe Worthen, and just remarkable people. He was working at the University of Iowa, and he loved having me around. And they look like the classic, as he talked about it, Norman Rockwell portrait. He's tall and
Sure.
lanky. She's shorter and stout, but she's tall also.
Uh-huh.
Germanish. I think her dad was German, her mom was Swedish, and I don't know, he was probably amalgamation of all kinds of different ancestry,
Sure.
like we all are. In any event, so we're going places. Well, they wanted to take me to this place. I think it was called Germantown or someplace. Very few people there. And the one meeting place, the gathering place, was this eating place. So we sit down, and the place may be able to fill up to 40 people if you're squeezed in there, maybe 50. And then the kitchen's right there, and they have meat and potatoes, right? Classic. And maybe something else, but primarily meat and potatoes. So as people walking in, I'm sitting here, the door is here, and then Helen sitting right next to me, or Helena, and then her husband sitting in front, and we're just having beautiful small chit chat, right? And one person after the other, without exception, walks in and grabs my hair. It's in thicker
Oh,
braids, and they're like saying hello to Helena, hello to Joe, and they're like, "Look at this hair, blah 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 blah." Never say hello to me. Don't even know I exist. This is in the '90s, folks,
wow.
near the late '90s. And so Joe and I are looking because we have a nonverbal communication going on because we've gone around the town and people either don't want to serve us because I'm there or whatever. This is in the '90s.
Wow.
And so and so Helena, not knowing what Joe and I have been experiencing, because it just is, right? She's, says, "Stop it, that's my friend." And she stands up. And so Joe and I, not dismissing her, but we just laugh. Like, people are doing the best they can, even
Yeah.
though the best they can is not okay. You don't grab someone's hair as though it's your property and you do what you will with it.
Yeah.
And so, but it was so remarkable. But in that moment, that loved one, Helena, got to, and I'm sure she doesn't mind me using her name, that's why I'm using it, got to learn a little bit of what folks of darker hue like me get to
Yeah.
experience when we choose to go places where people rarely see us. I remember a similar experience in China. It was
Yeah.
remarkable. People ran out, and of course, there's a different cultural perspective. In this particular, on this little small island, they had never seen a Black person. And they
Wow.
ran out and they grabbed my hair from a place where they did hair. And they were
Wow.
talking in their native language. And I was smiling. I let them do they did their thing. And I was not the worst for the wear. And
Yeah.
yet we understand culturally it meant different things in the US, in that
Oh,
town
yeah.
versus China. But the powerful thing is to not get caught up in that minor stuff. Because in the process of them doing that, Helena got to learn something that
Yeah.
she would otherwise not learn. I knew she loved me. She knew I loved her. That's not the issue. She didn't know what Black folks of darker hue, whether they're Black, whether they're Native American, whether they're Latino, whether they are East Indian or whatever, Blacker you people, darker you people, not all Black, but darker you people experience. And she got to experience it. It opened
Yeah.
up not only her mind, because she's brilliant, her mind was already open, it opened up her heart. And that heart mind connection actually helped to shift her understanding
Yeah.
and give her even a deeper level of compassion. She didn't need to have much compassion for me. We already had a love fest going on, right?
Right.
It was more about those others that she would otherwise never even know about. Or because of the nature of her lived reality, there was no reason why she'd come in contact with. But the point
Absolutely.
that I'm making is that difference, and the example I gave is not perhaps not the most brilliant example, but it really reflects the fact that there is a lot of diversity and there is a lot of stuff that leads to people even going to the extreme of hating, of
Yeah.
fearing. And as you and I talked earlier, it's really about ignorance primarily, and
Yeah.
then secondarily, it's reinforced by fear. Now, some of it is just hate because people can hate. But when you get down to the deep recesses of it all, and so many folks have chosen to do that for themselves, I'm thinking about white men in particular, but also some white women in
Hmm.
this country where there's a legacy of, you name it, whatever it
Yep.
is, against people of color or against women or against people who are disabled. You can go on and on and on, or against young people, ageism. When those folks demonstrate, and they have in different, whether it's in books or in interviews, that they went deep, they realized that they had some issue that was directly tied to what they experienced in childhood that
Absolutely.
let them believe, let them understand that the only way they could have is if someone didn't have. The only way they can feel powerful is if someone that was less powerful. When we're able to get to the place where we go deep like that, Dan, you and I know we're preaching to the choir, but we're doing more than that through this broadcast. When we go deep, we understand why when I look at you, I inherently value you. Or when I look at you, I negate you. It has nothing to do with you. It's 100% to do with me. And when I know that, all of a sudden, I can work on my stuff. And when I
Yeah,
am healthy, I want you to be healthy, right?
absolutely. That's a sign of a healthy leader. Is one of the first things I learned sitting with you as a client, a friend, and a mentor was the power of the abundance mentality and not scarcity. And your life story is so powerful and is an example of making the choice to live with an abundant mentality. There are literally everywhere we look in our daily life, there are shards of wisdom waiting for us, right? If we put on our glasses, maybe in my case, I got to pull it down a little bit to see the things closer to me. There are shards of wisdom everywhere we look, and they are
Yes.
waiting for us to just come along and pick them up and use them. And when we are operating from a place of fear, or we're afraid of the change, or we're not willing to honor somebody else's
Mhm.
unique humanity, we're not going to see that, and we're not going to have access to that. And it's just a real loss, not for them, but for ourselves. And so,
For all
being
of
in a
us.
yeah, it's a
Mhm.
loss for all of us. But I'm thinking more from a personal standpoint that
Yes.
there is so much to learn from the Helenas of the world and their experiences, and to also to be open to sharing our own experiences with people like
Mhm.
Helena, to say, this is my journey. Let me tell you what I've learned along the way on my journey. Tell me about your journey. And in the workplace and in the organizational workplace, those are critical ways to build resilient teams. Those
Mhm.
are critical ways
Mhm.
to have effective communications, internal communications, external communications. Those are powerful ways to honor your customers or the individuals whose lives you're trying to be a part of. So, to
Mhm.
bring it back to our conversation around
Mhm.
communications to drive change,
Mhm.
that kind of openness and that kind of honoring the other and honoring the other's experience is I think
Mhm.
a great way to think about the audiences, and to be successful in reaching them.
Mhm. Yes. Mm.
But those shards of wisdom are everywhere, man. They are. You just got to look for them. They're waiting for you.
And they're all over the place. You're right.
Yep.
So this notion of fatigue, the real
Yeah.
competition, not your enemies.
Yeah.
Speak to that. I think this is powerful.
We were talking about 2022, and it's New Year's, and
Mhm.
it's a chance to reset. And
Mhm.
if COVID has taught us anything, it's that the enemy isn't out there; it's within. And the enemy may be a virus out there, but really it's our reaction to it. It's our engagement with it. It's how it's reshaping society and our customers and our audiences. And so I had a political mentor earlier in my career who used to say to me, and this was in a political campaign environment where you're working 24 hours a day. You have this opponent in the political environment that you're against them, and everything's about they're a bad person and you're the right person. And he used to remind me, no, the enemy's fatigue. Because when we're fatigued and when we're not taking care of ourselves with faith and family and finance and fitness and fun, that's when we make bad choices. That's when we don't respect other people.
Mhm.
That's when we don't
Mhm.
operate from a position of honesty and humility.
Mhm.
And fatigue, really, as we think about
Mhm.
2022, man, I'm tired. Aren't you tired? This is enough. Like 3 years of this COVID journey, we're
Yeah.
entering year three. And like, it's okay to be tired, but I think it's also okay as a leader to recognize that your staff is tired, your consultants and vendors are tired, your customers are tired, and to
Yes.
honor that and to give them space to recharge. Um, I mean, that's really what I wanted to raise to the folks
Yeah.
engaged in this broadcast, is just to give yourself and give the people you are engaging with a little bit of latitude.
Invaluable.
Yeah,
Invaluable. And a wonderful opportunity for us to transition into the power of mindfulness.
yeah,
So I want to ask you, Dan, as the principal of Full Court Press, or FCP, your leadership in, uh, I call it your leadership effectiveness in helping organizations achieve milestones suggest a dynamic relationship between leadership mindfulness and strategic communications.
Yeah,
Is this true?
I would think so. I mean, I think embedded in what you're saying is the very definition of mindfulness from John Kabat-Zinn, which is paying attention on purpose right now without judgment. And that simple equation, when you present it in a communications environment, it's just as important as any other communications tool you might use, right?
Mm,
It's is the leader or is the organization paying attention? What does that mean, paying attention? Does it mean engaging with your employees? Does it mean taking customer feedback? Doing it on purpose? Is there a system involved in
mm,
getting that kind of feedback?
mhm,
Doing it right now, meaning, is it a priority? Are you present even as you're getting that information in? Are you open to it? Are you listening to it? And then finally, I think back on all the CEOs we've worked with who, when presented with feedback from their customers, say, well, my customer's wrong. Well, are they? Like, they've given you the benefit of their engagement with your product or with
mhm,
your issue. Now it's on you to take that information in, not and be threatened by it, but to say, wow, I just got the answers to the test.
mhm.
And so I'm going to take that looking forward. And I think for leaders to be truly mindful, it means being open to paying attention on purpose right now in a non-judgmental way. I
I
explored a
love
lot of
that
this stuff.
definition.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll stop.
No, 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 don't stop. Please go
No,
ahead.
no, I just, I explored a lot of this, and it was fun to do so. A friend of mine wrote a book on mindfulness, Dr. Benjamin Epstein, called Living in the Presence. And um, we enjoyed about 11 conversations in a podcast environment. It's called Mindful Work. It's available online at mindfulwork.show. And we really looked at, how to apply some of these mindfulness principles in the work environment. And man, number one on that is just paying attention.
I love it.
Paying attention is critical.
Yeah. Well, you've already defined mindfulness. I love that. Paying attention on purpose without judgment.
Yeah.
That
Well, it's
is
John
powerful.
Kabat-Zinn. He's sort of the
Yes.
godfather of the modern
Mhm.
mindfulness movement. But and I would encourage your viewers and listeners to take in that or any of the other writings out there on mindfulness. I think business, however, and communications is the lost venue for that. And I think that's
Mm,
really the next frontier.
yeah. Well, powerful. Why mindfulness leadership is essential to quality leadership
Yeah.
always. I said now initially, but really always. Why is
Well,
mindfulness leadership essential to quality leadership always?
well, think about your example about Helen back in the diner
Mm,
in Ames, Iowa, right?
mhm,
I as a leader, you know, people come to you every day and offer you their time in order to help you accomplish an organizational goal.
mhm,
To be willing to welcome them in a non-judgmental way. You have no idea what they're going through when they're not working with you. You have no idea what their life experience is. You have
mhm,
no idea, frankly, the shards of wisdom they've collected along the way. So as a leader, quality leadership, I think, demands a non-judgmental approach
mhm,
to your colleagues. Putting your frame of reference on their
mhm,
experience is not going to work. And as a communicator, that's never going to be the key to unlock that bear trap. The key to unlock that bear trap is actually recognizing this person has an experience. It's their own
mhm.
unique experience. It's informed by a lot of things, and then I need to approach that in a non-judgmental way in order for us to be a good collaboration.
Mhm. Yeah, you're making me think about just how to get to a place of mindfulness. People used to say, and they still do, and it's all over, it's ubiquitous throughout the internet, meditation, meditation, meditation. And I value meditation, and it is invaluable. But people need to know that it's not just reflection through meditation.
Yeah.
One could be walking, one could be hiking. In fact, I love just journaling or being in prayer through my meditation. So there's
Yeah.
different ways to be mindful. And I call it initially going someplace with my dog and literally clearing my mind of anything because I'm looking so intently at that water in that lagoon that we call the lake, and I'm wondering what's in it. And I look so intensely, and before I know it, I see something that seemingly my naked eye could not see without intention. And then I see its relationship to other aspects of what's going on in that small pool of water. And then I'm watching how the ripple effect of a bird hits, and all of a sudden I'm free from whatever the nonsense was that was in my head.
Absolutely.
And then when I come back, because my dog has pulled me, like, let's keep moving. And then I'm like, oh, there's people around. Or
Yeah.
when I leave early enough, the dog is running and I'm dancing outside thinking no one's around. And then I open my eyes and everyone's around looking, clapping. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm back. I mean, whatever it is that you need to do to get there,
Yeah.
go to that space, because the power of it, it's you just cannot, it's indescribable. Because when I come back from that walk, when I come back from that, that few minute dancing or whatever it is, or that reflection, all of a sudden aspects of my brain seems to be just almost vibrate. I can feel it. It's like cool air going in. And then
Yeah.
I feel like the heart connection is a stronger link with the brain. I feel like my body is limber, and I just feel free. I feel like I'm going to fly. I don't know, folks, I'm not going to jump off a cliff or anything, but I feel like I could fly. And so I go to work on a plan or whatever it is, and it's like it comes.
Yeah.
I'm in a zone more efficiently. The zone is open. Whereas when I don't allow myself that mindfulness, all of a sudden I experience that stress that becomes, if I don't watch it, distress. And before I know it, I'm a cog in my own wheel, and I'm just enveloping me, and I am in pain. And before I know it, I've left the well-being state, and I fill in the blank. I'm not going to say it for me or you, but you know that stress is the number one reason. If you don't know, folks, scientists keep saying and showing up, find the evidence over and over again. Stress directly correlated, highly correlated with disease. Arguably, stress is the number one reason why we experience high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, on and on, arthritis. You can go on and on. And so the fundamental gift to yourself in terms of fitness is being mindful, going to the spaces of just relief. So it's not just about the bottom line. How do I be mindful so I can get a better result for my organization?
Yep.
Well, first of all, you're probably going to break the organization with that kind of intensity. How do you be like the Taoists say of that tree that has a branch that just moves, and people say, "Oh, that branch is weak; it's going to break." Well, the wind hits it, and it just moves. It's flexible, and the branch that is so hard you can't move it. It breaks because
Yep.
it's not flexible. So hopefully you're getting some of these metaphors because they're powerful. The bottom line is we get to be the healthier selves, and we get to take the time wherever we're at and make it happen. You can meditate in a meeting. You can pray in a meeting. You can have walking meetings.
Yep.
You can put
I want to just build on that with a small idea and a big idea.
go for it.
So the small idea is I learned from a friend recently, um, a reaction to being challenged on the road, but it really can apply in any moment of stress, which is to curl your toes. Just if you're driving and somebody cuts you
Ah.
off, curl your toes. Um, Curling your toes forces you to just take a moment to get out of that stressful situation and give yourself a moment to focus on curling your toes. When you curl your toes, you give your body just a little tiny bit of space between
Ah.
that stressor and between and your body knows, I think, a lot. I think the larger thing that I would encourage people to think about, and mindfulness is to it's been made into a thing, but I would encourage us to just remember the power of one breath, right? One breath, one deep breath can create such a measure of distance to give you the perspective you need, to give you the space you need as a leader, as a parent, as a community member, as a partner. You know, there's no shortage of stressors in all of our life. And one breath is the starting point to being paying attention, to doing things on purpose, to doing things right now, to doing them in a non-judgmental way. Literally, we are all one breath away. And so what I would encourage people on this call to do is, in thinking about 2022 and thinking about stressors you have, is rather than, it's easy to get overwhelmed, but to just take one breath and to use that as a tool to give yourself some space both here as well as in your body.
I love
curl
that
your
advice. Curl your toes and breathe.
Curl your toes and breathe.
I love it. Years ago, I went to see, or I didn't go to see him. He saw me and gave me, without ever touching me, he gave me a gift that was invaluable. I'm going to pronounce it hopefully correctly. He was a master of Qigong.
Okay.
And he saw that my shoulders were like I was a football player. It was like this.
Whoa.
I was in pain and walking in pain. Didn't even know it. I was in 2 PhD programs, working full time, thought I could handle it all. And I didn't even know I was walking down this place. And this guy, through his wife, the wife spoke English. He's from China. He didn't speak any English. Huge guy, probably 6, almost 7 feet tall. She asked if on his behalf, if he could just shift the chi around my body. He never touched me.
Yeah.
And literally in 10 minutes, my shoulders went from here to here. And and she just told me to do one thing, and that's breathe. And he just shifted the energy, and I was forever changed. That was like in 89 or 90 in San Francisco, California. I just wish I had the presence of mind to say, I need to always know you. It reminds me of something that
it's all there.
Bill George, a professor of Harvard School of Business, author of Discover Your True North, Becoming an Authentic Leader, he wrote, and that is, the practice of mindful leadership gives you tools to measure and manage your life as you're living it. It teaches you to pay attention to the present moment, recognizing your feelings and emotions and keeping them under control, especially when faced with highly stressful situations. And this is a gentleman who served on many boards, Goldman Sachs, Novartis, Target, ExxonMobil, Mayo Clinic. But you don't have to have been in the leadership role like him to know this, right? Many of you probably are living this. And if you're like one of the folks who I know viewing this, because she indicated that she loved the description of mentorship, having someone pull out of you what you may not yet see within yourself. Zerica, brilliant mind, happens to be, thank goodness, I'm honored. She's one of my nieces. I've got a bunch of brilliant ones. This young lady practices meditation all the time. She's a picture of physical and mental and emotional well-being, but it's by choice. We get to create it wherever we're at and whatever roles we choose to be in.
One of the hardest things, I think, for all of us, and I put myself at the top of the list, is to plant our feet and stand in choice. You know, we always feel like we're being pushed around, buffeted by all the stuff we can't control. And I would just encourage everybody in 2022, aside from curling your toes, to try to be okay with planting your feet and standing in choice. And I think that I would hope that folks would find benefits, much as I have, about making choices, standing in that choice, and then saying, this is where I am, and being candid about that. And then that, I think, can help inform you as a communicator, because you can encourage other people to do that.
That's among the most powerful things that we share here, that we could have ever shared here. And you shared it, Dan.
Oh, thank you.
Is that the power of who we are as humans? We're always exercising choice. And the degree to which we're mindful of it, we can choose in a way that actually adds to our lives. So I just want to honor you, Dan. You're a remarkable man. I'm so happy that you and your awesome wife have each other, and your awesome children have each one of you. and are contributing to your growth and development always, and those awesome dogs you have, and that awesome life that you have. And the bottom line, folks, we all can choose to build the awesomeness that we
Yeah.
want to experience. It all begins with that thought, and then a big imagining, and then taking action and feeling it at the core level, and only using the habits, the daily habits that allow us to actually or to actualize that, to manifest whatever that vision is that came from, I want this. And so, what did we begin with? Dan saying, let's look at this year. Ask yourself in what way you want to rebrand yourself. And I want to illuminate something that one other person shared. We're sharing nuggets because we believe and we're sharing people because we believe in honoring people.
Yeah.
Janice, I think her last name is pronounced Marturano. She wrote Finding the Space to Lead, a practical guide to mindful leadership. She says there's two major aspects of an exceptional leader, one who demonstrates excellence. One is the ability to connect. The other is the ability to skillfully initiate or guide change.
Yeah.
And so, what did we begin with that Dan shared in a simplistic way? The three major means to drive change through communication. We want you to leverage this. Look at this session more than once. It's online, it's for you to access. And we encourage you, if you'd like more of this content and you like particular content, let us know. As Jet put the note of how to subscribe up for those of you who just joined later in this broadcast, definitely subscribe. Also hit like so that other people who would value this content have access to this content. Dan, I value you. I've always felt from the first time I met you that we're definitely siblings from different
Absolutely.
parents, and the essence of your spirit is absolutely beautiful. And I honor you and wish you more than you can imagine and your family can imagine this year.
Thank you. And right back to you. You are a special, wonderful person. And I think special and wonderful for convening 83 conversations with experts to offer that knowledge generously to other people. I think that's a real testament to who you are as a human. So thank you for having me. For everyone in the audience, I would share that both Elnora and I offer a lifetime guarantee. If you got some advice on this, and it would, we're always happy to talk more about it. I know both of us are always available to chat through it. But really, just a special time with you and a special time with your audience. So thank you so much.
My honor. As we transition out of this broadcast today, just know that we're here every Wednesday, noon Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and wherever you're at on the globe, including one of our viewers from Cambodia, my team from the Philippines, or you're from the continent of Africa, or you're out of some other place in Europe or Canada, please just know we're here. And we're here to really illuminate the best of you and remind you that you get to be the chief executive officer of your own life. The degree to which you do that, oh my God, the riches in terms of the 5S will just overflow. So we're expecting you to have an exceptional year. And whatever we can do to add to that, we will. Why don't?